the Portland City Council session for May 29th, 2019. Carla, can you please call the roll?
Fish.
Here.
Hardesty.
Here.
Udaly.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Wheeler.
Thank you, Carla. Before we begin, our city attorney will read the rules of decorum.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. If it does not, you may be ruled out of order. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Please remain seated in council chambers unless entering or exiting. If you are filming the proceedings, please do not use bright lights or disrupt the meeting. Disruptive conduct such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders to feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Thank you. We will now begin with communication items. Carla, will you please read the first item?
Item 485, request of Petro Farkas to address council regarding road construction projects in Multnomah Village.
And Carla, I believe all 5 people who've signed up for communications are testifying on the same item, so maybe we could call the first 3 and they can all come up together.
Okay, first 3. The second one, 486, request of Christine Lassiter to address council regarding road construction projects affecting Multnomah Village. And 487, request of Kenneth Ziedman to address council regarding road construction projects affecting Multnomah Village. I'll just read the last 2. Request of Jill Creecraft to address council regarding road construction projects affecting Multnomah Village. And 489, request of Barb Cantonwine to address council regarding effects that scheduled road construction project will have on small businesses in Multnomah Village.
All right, welcome everyone. You're welcome to read in whatever you want. Just state your name. You don't need to state your address for the record before you begin your testimony, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christine Lassiter with Allstate in Multnomah Village and a board member of the Multnomah Village Business Association. Our locally owned and operated businesses have been in the village for 7 years. First of all, we would like to thank you for the opportunity to present to the City Council today and appreciate all that the city is doing to make improvements to our community. Multnomah Village, located on Capitol Highway just off of I-5 in southwest Portland, has been a neighborhood business district since 1909. The Multnomah Village Business Association has supported the almost 150 businesses in the village for more than 2 decades. The village is home to primarily locally owned businesses, including destination spots such as Thinker Toys and Annie Bloom Books, as well as the Multnomah Arts Center, which serves the residents of the community year-round. Multnomah Village has had some significant changes that impact our district. We've had the retirement of longtime business owners, such as O'Connor's and Jones Jewelers, that have caused business turnover, a major fire at Renter's Grill that is taking over a year to rebuild, as well as new multifamily housing buildings adding several hundred square feet of new retail space that has brought new businesses and residents to our district. In addition to providing great variety of locally owned, unique shopping experiences, we also work hard to bring several successful family-friendly events that collectively attract nearly 30,000 kids and families, including one of the largest street fairs in Portland, Multnomah Days, and our huge community Halloween trick-or-treat event. And we've created innovative economic development efforts in the Golden Ticket, which generates more than $1 million in holiday retail sales in the village each year. With having just one major road going through the center of Multnomah Village, a major portion of that being one-way traffic, diversions from that main strip can cripple small businesses who already fight online and mega retailers. While we're very excited about the planned infrastructure investments coming to the village, including a major repaving project down Capitol Highway, multiple sewer rehab projects around the village, and the addition of a bike lane coming into the village, we are understandably concerned about the critical need to mitigate negative impact to the businesses of the village. We come before you to ask for strong communication with Multnomah Village Business Association to ensure that the major upcoming construction projects do not kill district businesses. We are asking to involve businesses in traffic rerouting and customer communications so that we are able to maintain as much of our customer base as possible and so that people do not get too used to diverting away from Multnomah Village permanently. We invite PBOT staff to have a standing time on our monthly board meeting to keep us updated on projects, and would also like to personally invite each member of City Council to tour our district during construction. We'd love to show each of you what makes the village unique, and feel that this could help show Portlanders that Multnomah Village is open for business. Thank you for your time and considerations on the proposals we are bringing to you today. We look forward to working closely with each of these projects.
It's 5:01.
Very well done.
Thank you.
No pressure. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jill Creecraft, and I am a native Oregonian and board member of the Multnomah Village Business Association. I'm also the owner of Sip Divine, Oregon's first combination wine bar and bottle shop carrying Northwest wines exclusively, located in the heart of Multnomah Village. Sip Divine is a small, locally owned shop carrying local products. Last January, we celebrated 17 years in business. We would firstly like to thank you for some projects in and around Multnomah Village, especially funding the Capitol Highway Improvement Project from our viaduct south to Barber Boulevard, over 24 years in the making. Thank you also for the parking improvements at Multnomah Art Center, the bike and pedestrian improvements along Multnomah Boulevard, and for the updates to parking and sidewalks on Capitol Highway between Southwest 35th and 36th. All of these have been beneficial to our community. Thank you. With the longevity of 17 years comes a unique perspective. These projects have come at a cost. Near constant disruption for over a decade to local small businesses through the worst recession this generation has seen starting in 2008. And in reality, the precursor started in 2000. This is a double whammy to us. For those of you who may not remember, there are only two major roads to access Multnomah Village, Multnomah Boulevard and Capitol Highway. A brief overview shows perspective. Details and timelines are in your packets. The 2 years from 2000 to 2002, Multnomah Boulevard had a sewer line replaced and was repaved. Between 2005 and 2013, this line was repeatedly repaired and ultimately replaced, which included some road closures at the critical holiday season. The 14-year disruption was rounded out in 2014 with bike lanes and sidewalks, which look much better now. During these 14 years, community members were thoroughly trained to avoid the area and find other places to go. Capitol Highway was profoundly affected in 2013 during a Green Street project, which took twice as long as the original estimate. Photos are in your packets. The current construction project begins today on Capitol Highway with a completion date in November. Beginning in December, the prep work starts on the Capitol Highway Improvement Project. Desperately needed sidewalks, bike lanes, and stormwater improvements, thank you again, which is slated to continue through 2020 into 2021. Also penciled in 2021 is the Crossroads jug handle reconfiguration, followed by the Southwest Corridor light rail at some point. While all of these are not in Multnomah Village proper, they do impact us by rerouting and keeping people away. We do support and have been advocating for these projects, but we will be feeling the effects of and pressures of these in and around Multnomah Village for 7 or more years yet. The Small Business Association states that 25% of businesses do not reopen again after major interruption to business, something Multnomah Village is desperately hoping to avoid during this and upcoming construction projects. We must try to lessen this inconvenience as much as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good morning, council members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Barb Cantonwine. I'm an owner of Healthy Pets Northwest. Our family business is a member of the Multnomah Village Business Association, and I am a member of the board. Healthy Pets Northwest has 3 Portland locations, including the one we've had in Multnomah Village for 12 years. We have 8 dedicated employees at this store who also reside within the community. Customer service and community outreach are #1 priorities to us and the staff at our stores. According to Venture Portland, small local businesses donate to community causes at more than twice the rate of national chains or the online giants. Also, 70% of every dollar spent in a local business like ours stays in the local Portland community. That's according to Venture Portland as well. The staff at our stores live, work, and shop with their hard-earned dollars at other local businesses because they know how important it is to keep those dollars local. As small businesses, we are used to facing problems and finding ways to solve them. In fact, based on the notices we received about construction, the staff and management of Healthy Pets Northwest will be highlighting our local delivery service to ensure customers are still able to purchase the heavy bags of food and cat litter, even if access to our store is difficult by car during the construction. We all want to make sure we retain our customers and the economic vitality of our community during the construction, but the businesses in Multnomah Village need your help. Communicating to customers of all businesses and the village neighborhood will be imperative. The Business Association plans to do this through print media, extra signage, and paid ads on social media. Plus, for my business, we will have additional fuel and other vehicle costs associated with the delivery service. The money used for this will be above and beyond what we currently spend on this type of communication, all due to the major construction project. We'd like you to consider a $3,000 customer communications grant to help Multnomah Village businesses interact with our valued customers before, during, and after the construction. The grant we are requesting would be similar to a very successful PBOT partnership with the Foster Area Business Association in outer southeast Portland that helped businesses in that district survive the epic streetscape construction project that is still occurring. That small city investment had a really big impact for the affected local businesses. If granted, the Business Association, along with the village businesses, would match the dollars with at least a 3-to-1 rate through discounts and increased economic activity during and immediately following construction. We could even host a public ribbon-cutting ceremony to celebrate the project's completion, as well as our shiny new streetscape. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Petey Farkas, and I'm the owner of Peachtree Gifts, a card and gift shop in the heart of Multnomah Village. I opened my shop on Small Business Saturday 6.5 years ago, and we are located on Capitol Highway. Peachtree Gifts is best known for our card selection, our wall of novelty socks, and locally sourced products. And while our customers come for unique and humorous gifts, all humor aside, we work hard on a daily basis to provide a shop that brings customers coming to the village on a regular basis. I can proudly say that I currently employ 8 women, and during the holiday season, I will employ up to 10. 5 of these women live within 2 miles of my store and are frequent patrons of the other businesses in the village, a wonderful cycle that occurs when we work and live within a close proximity and spend our dollars locally. I am here speaking to you today as I am concerned how the current scheduled projects that will close Capitol Highway and surrounding roads will affect these 8 women, our business as a whole, and the other businesses in the village. Projects of this scale can negatively hurt the livelihood of our employees immediately, but it can also have a lasting effect when customers slowly and without intention find new routines. They come across a new card shop, book, or toy store, and over time stop spending their dollars in Multnomah Village. Like many other retail businesses, the success of my store relies heavily on the ability for our customers to visit us during major holidays. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Easter, graduation, Halloween, and the winter holidays. While these days mean very little to a construction timeline, they can mean everything to a small business such as my own. We rely on these holidays as they keep our businesses thriving. At Peachtree Gifts, for example, over 30% of our gross sales are made just between Thanksgiving and Christmas. One of the great improvements the city made recently was to institute a construction blackout in business districts during the holidays to ensure customers could easily make cash registers ring. Thank you for instituting this important blackout. While it is my understanding the construction will occur over the summertime, I feel it is important to stress that any construction that goes over the scheduled timeline that begins to encroach on these critical months of our business would be detrimental. For us to continue to effectively run our businesses, we are here to ask that during this project, we will be afforded 3 important items. 1, a complete and clear timeline of the work that will be completed with updated timelines if necessary. 2, clear and effective signage that will tell our customers that businesses are open for business during construction. And 3, the aforementioned $3,000 customer and communications grant to help us in our marketing efforts for both during and after the construction. Multnomah Village often does not get the same attention and press as many of the other neighborhood districts. For this reason, we feel we need to work twice as hard to ensure we stay afloat during construction. I hope we may have the opportunity to welcome you to Peachtree Gifts and to Multnomah Village soon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Did you guys practice before you got it?
Oh, yeah.
Just a few times.
It shows.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ken Zeidman. I was born in Portland and have lived here most of my life. I'm a longtime member of the Multnomah Village Business Association, as well as the Multnomah Historical Society. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My grandfather, Nathan Director, was in the retail and wholesale clothing business in Portland for over 50 years. My parents, Jerry and Zelda, were in the retail women's ready-to-wear business, operating 6 stores in the Portland area for 37 years. The stores were known as Jerry's Fashions for Her. I worked with my parents in their clothing business, as well as branched out in some retail endeavors of my own. In 1973, my family purchased a property in Multnomah Village on the corner of Southwest Capitol Highway and 36. We used the rear portion of the building as a warehouse distribution center for the clothing stores and rented out the front of the building to an antique store. Currently, I own 3 properties in Multnomah Village, serving 22 different tenants, including music teachers, several therapists, real estate offices, school photographer, contractor, senior theater provider, the Prosperity Pie Shop, Switch Clothing and Shoes, and Peachtree Gifts. 15 of those 22 tenants I serve are businesses owned by women. About 60% of the local independently owned businesses in Multnomah Village are either owned or co-owned by women. You've just heard from 4 of them. Having been a tenant myself for many years, I have a unique and empathetic perspective as a landlord for my tenants. I know how challenging operating a business can be. I make every effort to keep rents affordable. Multnomah Village businesses are primarily owner-operated. They work hard, put in long hours, and put their financial resources at risk every day. Even one day of business interruption can mean a monetary loss. Business owners still have to pay employees, rent, utilities, and business taxes. Unlike being a salaried employee, an owner does not get paid if their customers or clients cannot get to their business. Commissioners Hardesty, Udaly, and Fish, I think you can empathize with what it's like to be a successful small business owner and how challenging it can be. The previous testimony has been about the past, current, and upcoming construction. They have outlined solutions to help lessen its impact on businesses in the village. Longer term, the city and Multnomah Village are getting denser and struggling to meet the demands, pardon me, for all modes of transportation, parking, and access to the district. Expanding the parking lot at the Multnomah Arts Center by the addition of a multi-level parking structure, may I go on?
Yeah,
It's
you
just
can.
20 seconds. Parking structure would be a solution to meeting the needs of a growing community. By collecting a fee for parking in the structure, revenue could be generated for both the city and help with the Multnomah Arts Center 2021 plan for sustainability. I am sure businesses would happily validate parking if it meant more customers. Thanks for your time and attention.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming today and taking time out of your schedule. As it sounds like you know, I'm a former small business owner for 22 years. I certainly understand what one bad month can do to a business, especially if that month is December. You've come with really reasonable requests. I will certainly get you that timeline. We are ramping up our Open for Business campaign, so the signage that you're asking for, I think, is underway, but let's stay in communication about that and make sure it's adequate and the kind of approach that you want. I'll support the request for the grant. I can't promise you $3,000 right now. I don't actually have that authority, but I will advocate for it. Parking structure, I'm not going to wade into that right now. I did have one clarifying question. Someone had mentioned that there was a new construction project that will begin in December, and then another person mentioned a holiday blackout. Are we waiting until after Christmas then? Is that the?
The prep work on that project is primarily
Can you move the
utility
mic a little closer, just so we can hear you?
The prep work for the Capital Highway Improvement Project begins in December, and it largely is utility location and dealing with some rogue trees.
So you're not concerned with disruption in December so much?
It's spot disruption. It's not shutting down the street quite yet. That will be most of 2019.
Okay. Well, let's stay in.
I'm sorry, 2020.
Let's stay in communication about that. My Director of Policy, Jamie, is right back there. If you want to just say hello and get her card, and let's keep communicating. And I'd love to come take a tour, although I've been coming to Multnomah Village since I was a little girl. And some of the businesses are still there, not many. So thank you. Yes, Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. First, I just want to say how refreshing to come with specific asks to tell a story. And so first, I'm just impressed that you came prepared. You knew what you wanted. And let me also say I share your frustration, because even if all those projects weren't about to happen one on top of the other on top of the other, it's really, really hard to maneuver transportation-wise in your neighborhood. So I can definitely appreciate the frustration, but I'm just in awe that you've put together such a compelling story with specific asks that gives us an opportunity to be supportive. So let me know how my office can help, and thank you. And you could hold classes to teach other community members just how to do this. I'm very impressed with your organization, your ask, and the fact that you knew the right thing that you needed to ask for here. Thank you. And you've got the right government, so I appreciate that as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fish?
High praise. High praise.
from me.
Not
have a-
everyone gets that.
A few things I want to add. I want to thank Venture Portland for being such a great partner to the city. Heather Hale does such a great job, she and her team, advocating for our 50 neighborhood business districts. You're one of our most important districts. We're not allowed to have favorites of all the 50. I love both of my children, but we also spend a lot of time in Multnomah Village. My son likes pancakes at a certain establishment, and we bought a lot of toys at another establishment, and we've eaten a lot of pizza elsewhere, and you can go down the list. So Venture Portland, thank you. Thank you, Heather. I want to echo what my colleagues have said. Thank you for coming prepared with specific asks. It is refreshing. We have the potential through our bureaus and collectively to respond quite nimbly to community requests. And you heard Commissioner Udaley go through your list. But a lot of people just aren't as confident as you are in coming in and being very clear about what the ask is. So let me just add my commitment, because a number of these projects in your neighborhood involve Bureau of Transportation and the Bureau of Environmental Services working together. And by the way, as Heather will tell you, we've come a long way in coordinating our activities so that we lessen the impact on small businesses like you. We'll work with Commissioner Udaley's office to make sure that we're aligned. I had a question myself. How frequently does your business association meet? Is it monthly?
Yes, we meet monthly.
Okay, and, we have, between us, Chloe and I have a lot of outreach people that do community outreach. We'll make sure that there is an update that comes to your business association on what's going on, and it's perfectly reasonable to ask for not only a current timeline, but advance notice if we're going to go beyond that timeline.
Our next meeting is tomorrow at 8:30 a.m.
You're good. You're good. And the final, and I'm certainly open to the grant. We'll do a little homework in terms of how that works. One other question. There are 5 of you, and each of you did a wonderful job presenting. But in terms of the council coming back with follow-up, is there one of you who has been designated sort of the lead? And your full
Couldn't
name
tell.
again is?
Christine Lassiter.
Okay, Christine, so we'll make sure that we funnel any responses through you. Perfect. And that you'll then bring your colleagues up to speed. I guess the last thing I just want to point out is that small businesses are the backbone of our community, and they are what give our neighborhood so much richness and vitality. And I'm reminded every time someone talks about getting a good deal online, that it comes at a cost. Our online retailers provide a convenience, but they don't support Little League. They don't give back to their community in myriad ways. They don't mentor people. They don't do what you do and have done historically. So I think it's incumbent on us to support our neighborhood local businesses, and we do that proudly. So thank you very much for your time today. And
Thank you.
We look
Thank
forward to
you.
getting back to you.
And last but not least, Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you very much for coming in. I actually do get to have a favorite because you're my local business association. I've been shopping at Multnomah Village for nearly 33 years and looking forward to doing it a lot more after the end of 2020. I appreciate your acknowledgement that all of these projects are in the end going to be a good thing, particularly the long-awaited Capitol Highway project, which will finally have some sidewalk that I will be able to walk down the hill on rather than the mud path. I just wanted to publicly apologize. I can't be at the Multnomah Days Parade this year because my son is getting married on the same day. Most inconvenient, and he's in Chicago, so I can't be present. He didn't check with me as to what the parade schedule was, but that's why I won't be there, because otherwise it's really a great parade. Thank you for all your work.
He's welcome to get married in the parade.
Yeah, they live in Chicago, so that would just be a bit difficult, but thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I forgot to say, be careful what you ask for. You're getting all these improvements that you've been advocating for how many years, right?
Right?
So just one of those kind of warnings, right? Be careful what you ask for, you might get it. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Black. This is called
You are in disruption. If you don't stop speaking, you will be removed. Okay, he needs to be removed.
Shameful vote. You can do better. Nick, you need to-
We're going to call a recess for 3 minutes. We are now on the consent agenda. Carla, have any items been pulled from the consent agenda?
Yes, item 496.
496, and I understand that was pulled by Commissioner Hardesty, so as a courtesy to the commissioner, and because we have park staff in the room, I'm going to move that to immediately follow the two time certain items. All right. Please call the roll on the consent agenda.
Fish,
Aye?
Hardesty. Aye. Fritz.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye, thank you. The consent agenda is approved. Before we begin with the regular agenda, the mayor's office has requested that items 501, 502, and 503 be moved to the afternoon agenda after the 2 p.m. time certain. However, we're going to reschedule 501 entirely.
Okay,
So 502 and 503 to the afternoon. And if you're here to testify on 501, which is amend city code to streamline the procurement and contracting process, I'm sorry, but that item is being moved to a different date and time. All right, Carla.
President Uday, could I just ask, why are did the mayor's office say why the second readings are being moved to the afternoon?
He wants to be here for the vote and I think make closing comments.
Oh,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
So I just want to make an observation. I've got a hard out at 3:10, and so I also want to vote on these. So if we just, as long as we have the time to cast those votes before I go, because I was prepared to do it this morning.
Yeah. The goal is to be out of chambers by 3, since we have a third evening session. And that is why I've suggested we reschedule 501, because I think that item will be potentially lengthy.
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Hardesty.
I have a real concern with moving 502 to this afternoon. I am scheduled to not be here, and I do not want this voted on without me being in the chamber.
Perhaps we could move it to the beginning of the 6 p.m. session, since it's just a vote.
I really don't want to do that. The 6 p.m. session is for the fair ordinance.
Then I say we do it now.
Okay, I'm going to move this to the end of the agenda. I'm going to ask Jamie to coordinate with the mayor's office, and we're going to move on to the next time certain. Carla, will you please read item 490?
Amend the comprehensive plan map and official zoning map to carry out the map amendments implementing the 82nd Avenue study, understanding barriers to development.
All right. This is the mayor's item. This is a second reading. Is there any further discussion on 490? Carla, please call the roll.
Fish,
Aye?
Hardesty,
Aye.
Fritz,
Thanks to Marty Stockton, April Wilson, and everybody who's been involved in this. Thank you, Commissioner Udaly, for what is still my most favorite amendment ever. Aye.
Udaly.
Well, I have asked my staff to go back and make a clip of your comment on that item, because any day I can make you that happy in council is a good day. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Carla, please read item, let me make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself. 491 and 492 together.
Okay. 491, amend the scope of the North Settle Road Local Improvement District to extend sanitary sewer to serve developed property owned by Supreme Perlite Company and extend the planned street, sidewalk, and stormwater improvements to the west right-of-way line of North Settle Road to provide maintenance and emergency access to undeveloped property owned by the Port of Portland. And 492, authorize the Bureau of Transportation to acquire certain permanent and temporary property rights necessary for construction of the North Settle Road Local Improvement District project through the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority.
Thank you, Carla. This should be really quick. We're asking to amend the North Settle Road Local Improvement District to extend the improvements to adjacent properties, and here to explain this in more detail is Andrew Abbey, the LID Administrator for PBOT, and a couple other people whose names I don't know off the top of my head. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Commissioner Daly. Andrew Abbey, Local Improvement District Administrator. On my immediate left is Ryan Cordy, an engineer with the Bureau of Environmental Services, and then on his left is John Dale, who's the right-of-way agent for the Portland Bureau of Transportation.
Sorry, John.
So this will be very brief, just to reacquaint the returning council members with the Settle Road LID, which was formed before we had the privilege of having Commissioner Hardesty on the council. You're seeing an overview map here of where Settle Road is located. It's just south of the Columbia River, and it's just west of North Portland Road. And this is a close-up view of the LID. So if you see that pink circle there on the left side of the map, that is the westernmost portion of North Settle Road that currently is not in the project limit. And we want to simply add that portion of the roadway into the limits of the project. North Settle Road is incredibly flat. It makes Kansas look positively hilly, and I say that as somebody who's driven across Kansas multiple times. And one of the challenges we have is building a road that we can put enough slope to the road so that the stormwater drains properly. So it just makes a lot of sense to build that now. Even more importantly, we would really like to incorporate the sanitary sewer extension into the work, because we don't want to build a brand-new concrete street and then have to jackhammer it out a couple years later to put in a sanitary sewer extension. The circle that you see on the north side of North Settle Road is a previously planned stormwater outfall to the Columbia River, which we don't currently have in the plans. We have worked very hard to keep the cost down on this project. So I just wanted to apprise the council that that work is no longer in the scope of the LID. These are some pictures that were taken back in March 2017, just to give you an indication of the problems of lack of stormwater drainage and an inadequate pavement section. This is another picture that was taken in July. You can still see that even though it was middle of summer, there was a lot of stormwater there on the street. And I just wanted to provide the council with a rendition of what the future improvements look like with the railroad track on the south side of Settle Road, new concrete street, and a sidewalk on the north side of the street. So the central question before council today, we are not deciding the question of whether to form this LID. We are deciding the question of whether to extend the street improvements and extend the sanitary sewer. There was no objection to any of the property owners funding the street extension or the sanitary sewer extension. We did receive 2 remonstrances related to other items, and those are in your Exhibit D. If you pass the ordinance as written, that will overrule the remonstrances. So Ryan is going to give you just a quick comment on the sanitary sewer extension, and then John Dale will explain the property rights ordinance.
Yeah, so Supreme Perlite is currently served on septic. The sewer that's existing on Settle Road is about 250 feet short. It was built in 1977. Some challenges, technical challenges, in order to extend that main to their property. We have to do underground jack and bore underneath spur line that goes, a railroad spur line that goes across Settle Road, and then an additional track that fronts their property. So we are making it as shallow as possible in order to serve them with gravity sewer, and but not shallow enough because there's certain requirements from the railroad that our sewer needs to be so deep.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm John Deo with the Portland Bureau of Transportation. So I'm here to speak on Agenda Item 492, and that authorizes the Bureau of Transportation to acquire property rights needed for the North Settle Road LID project under the eminent domain authority of the city, and it authorizes the offer of just compensation to affected property owners for the property rights. The property rights identified in the ordinance are needed to accommodate permanent improvements to be constructed in the right-of-way. And those include sidewalks, curbs, street trees, and stormwater facilities primarily. and to support the overall construction of the project. In addition, the property rights allow for the grading and reconnection of driveways to businesses along North Settle Road. And in general, the acquisitions include a 1-foot wide strip along the north side of North Settle Road and temporary easements for construction on the north and south sides of the street. All affected property owners have been notified for the need for the property rights and were invited to attend today to this hearing. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, colleagues. Commissioner Hardesty?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to put on the record that my fire marshal is in support, but didn't maybe get a chance to give you a letter, unless you have it right there. Do you have it?
I have it. Thank you,
Excellent.
Commissioner. I
You're
forgot
very
to hand it
welcome.
out. I'll do that right now.
Fantastic. Any other,
So you're going to go into the remonstrances?
Pardon?
Are you going to discuss the remonstrances?
The remonstrances are summarized in Exhibit D. None of the written comments in the remonstrances objected to the sanitary sewer extension, nor to the extension of the roadway. They were looking for additional reduction to LID assessments, and those were set by council at LID formation. So,
all right. Carla, I'm sorry.
Do we need to move are these already in the record?
they're already in the record, yes, and the ordinance contains a directive to overrule the remonstrances, but we did need to have a motion to adopt the new cover memo for Exhibit D, then take the property owner testimony, and then vote on the ordinance as amended.
All right.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Fish, seconded by Commissioner Hardesty. Carla, is there any testimony?
Yes, we have 4 people signed up. The first 3, please come on up, are Jim Brown, Nick Avanetti, and Bill Briggs.
Welcome. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes for testimony.
Madam Chair, my name is Jim Brown. I'm an attorney here in Portland. Madam Chair, members of the commission, on behalf of our client, Trigco Real Estate, LLC, I appreciate the opportunity to speak in support of the amendment in the scope of work of the North Settle Road LID as currently proposed. While none of the North Settle Road property owners want to incur the initially proposed $9.5 million in costs for the reconstruction of North Settle Road, all of the owners recognize the need to rebuild the road. North Settle Road is zoned heavy industrial, and there are hundreds of semi-trucks on the roadway every working day. Accordingly, it is most probably in the best long-term interests of all parties for the roadway to be constructed with a concrete rather than an asphalt surface. Based on our interactions with city staff over the past 3 years, we have found staff to share our concerns about costs and have worked with us to reduce costs. Most importantly, staff has concurred with us after reviewing the Mal Foster report that stormwaters can be managed by infiltration, thereby avoiding the initial proposal to pipe stormwaters to the river. As a result of those efforts, we have saved $1 to $2 million in costs and are optimistic that the roadway can be completed for about $6 million. We want to thank city staff and Mr. Abbey for their helpful efforts in bringing this matter to the council. Excuse me. They have listened earnestly to the property owners' concerns and have worked with us to design a project that meets the needs of the city, the property owners, and provides the capacity for the foreseeable needs for North Settle Road. We're grateful for the city's funding contributions to this project. We recognize that municipal funds are always tight and applaud the city's recognition of the need for North Settle Road to be reconstructed and its willingness to contribute significantly to the project. We appreciate Mr. Abbey's listening to Mr. Briggs' concerns about being assessed LID costs for unusable wetlands on his property. As a result, Mr. Briggs received more than a $241,000 reduction in his assessment, which was the right thing to do. Why Mr. Briggs chose to file a remonstrance against that reduction baffles me, but that's his choice. With these amendments, Mr. Abbey also addressed Supreme Pearlite's need to have city sewer line extended to their property, thereby providing city sewer to all of the current North Settle Road developed properties, with which we concur. We appreciate the transparency with which city staff has moved on this project forward, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Nick Avenatti. I'm the Director of Operations for Supreme Pearlite. We're a perlite manufacturer at the end of North Settle Road. The business has been there since 1954. It's been family-owned since 1960. I'll be the third generation owner-operator of the company. The sewer extension is really important to the viability of us continuing to be at the end of North Settle Road, so this is an important extension. The cost is going to be substantial. We'll try to absorb as much as we can, but some of it will have to be attempted to be pushed onto our customers. We value living wage. We pay all of our employees above $15 an hour. We pay 100% of the medical premiums for our employees and their dependents. All those benefits are really important to us, but these costs for the LID, I hope, won't impact that. So I really appreciate all the work that's been done to try to reduce the cost of the LID. Any other funding sources would be greatly appreciated for a small business that in a Settle Road that we hope to be here for many years to come. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, I don't hear well. Here's a letter that we couldn't pass, but you don't need it at the moment. I'll leave it for record. But first of all, I'm been blessed to be 83 years old just recently.
Happy birthday.
And I'm still working 5-6 days a week. But I'm here to plead today to save the majority of my needed retirement funds and be able to spend time with my 82-year-old lovely wife who I've been married to for 64 years. The problem is caused by the years of the city's neglect, perhaps even malfeasance, but by not caring for the 120-year-old dead-end street and using the monies that were available to them, properly pledged to them for the stormwater system, for which the 11 property owners still are paying and have for many years about $100,000 a year for the stormwater system. You saw from your earlier pictures from Andrew how mean that street is and how flooded it is. It had no reason to be that way. The street was had a proper storm system in it. Only about a third of it has failed because there's been no maintenance of the stormwater system. As a result, the property owners found that a proper street could be built for $4.6 million. And there was some discussion on meeting all the codes and all, but we spent money with outside engineers to support that. So the point being is it does need a street. The second point is, though, that the proportion what the city is paying for it is way out of bounds because of the neglect for the street. And no one has really addressed that I've seen, and I've been asking for 4 or 5 years for that kind of a review. So effectively what happens is that each property owner now of the 11 has to pay from $3,000 to as much as $12,000 or $13,000 a month for 20 years in order to effectively pay for the street. The problem with that, there's 4 or 5 private owners on that street that have sold their property or they've leased their property and their rental is only $4,000 or $5,000 a month. In my case, it removes my retirement because if I'm going to pay that kind of money, I don't have enough money to be retired. It's just that simple. So the city has some responsibility, in my mind, to look at that to see that they proportionally have taken their responsibility. And that's what I'm here for, and plead to that action, and would hope that you'd consider that and look at it in a better manner than has been looked at it, to my knowledge, at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Briggs, if you could hand your letters to the council clerk, she'll distribute them to us. Colleagues, do you have any questions for? Okay, thank you. Andrew, could you come back up and?
One more person.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a fourth person. My apologies.
The last person who signed up is Larry Kahn.
Morning. My name's Larry Kahn. I represent the owners of property on North Settle Road that is on the far southwest corner. And we lease our property to roughly 8 or 9 different tenants. My point is, and the reason I'm testifying at the moment, is that our property is the only property that does not rely on North Settle Road for ingress and egress. We have 3 access points, gates on North Portland Road, and most all of our truck traffic, particularly the larger truck traffic, uses those access points rather than Settle Road. So in my letter of remonstrance, I indicated that I felt that the amount of land that was included of ours in the LID assessment was way over the amount of land that should be attributed to the project. And that would entail a reduction in our assessed area of approximately 2.3 or 4 acres out of a total of, I believe, about 6. So that's why I'm here. All of our tenants are going to be responsible for these increased costs, whether they use Settle Road or not. And I felt on behalf of the owners that I needed to make a point for the fact that we're the only property in the project that does not rely on North Settle Road. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me,
Commissioner
Chair.
Hardesty?
I'm not quite sure what your point is. Are you suggesting that because you don't rely on that road, that you should not be included?
No, I'm only saying that a reduction of the amount of assessed property be reduced.
Based on?
Based on the fact that we don't utilize North Settle Road like all of the other property owners do.
Do your customers use that road?
A percentage do, yes.
So,
But the reduced area that I've identified in my letter of remonstrance accounts for all of those people that utilize North Settle Road for ingress and egress. And it's considerably less than the original amount of land that was allocated towards the assessed area.
thank you. I was just trying to really understand what your,
Yeah, I think they had us down for about 6 acres. We've got a 10-acre site on North Settle Road, or I mean, in that
right?
general property. And 6 of the 10 acres was allocated towards the Settle Road project, and my feeling is that that number should be closer to 3.5, roughly.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask the city folks about that when they come back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now Andrew, please come back up. We certainly don't want to cost burden property owners or imperil people's livelihoods or stability. Can you address the two remonstrances, and the issue of lesser use of Settle Road somehow justifies a lesser investment in the LID.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Andrew Abbey, LID Administrator. First of all, I should just mention to Council, you're not imposing a final assessment today. So really the question you're considering today is whether to extend the street and extend the sanitary sewer. I will respond to the concerns that were raised, but I just want to point out to Council that there will be a final assessment ordinance that will probably come in about 18 to 24 months, something along those lines. And that will be another opportunity if Council wants to make any adjustment. I would also point out on a very high level that we're still carrying a very large budget to pipe stormwater to the Columbia River. So we still are operating under the original budget at LID formation. So as staff are working very hard to bring these costs in below budget. So absent any change to the assessment methodology other than charging for the street extension, the sanitary sewer extension, there's plenty of opportunity to come back here with better news later. I want to just raise a couple of or make a couple comments. First of all, regarding the Merit USA oil re-refining remonstrance, this ordinance implements over an 86% reduction for one of the properties. So frankly, I was a little bit puzzled to get the remonstrance because we took into account the wetland area on an objective basis and made an exemption for that. So 86% is a really large reduction. The other point I wanted to make is that if we have never done LIDs in the past based on strictly access, that would be a new precedent that I would advise the council not to implement. You could have a perverse situation where somebody doesn't have a driveway on a street, they wait till the day after a final assessment, they go down to the Bureau of Development Services, get a driveway permit, and now have access to newly paved street, but didn't help pay for it. I would also add that even if for sake of argument, council granted a discount for no current access, ignoring future potential access, all of the properties on the north side of Settle Road also abut North Marine Drive. So if we were to grant an access for access, we would also have to take into account the properties on abutting North Marine Drive. And by the time you factor that in, the relief to the property owner on the corner of Portland Road and Settle Road would be pretty small. I think most importantly, all of the property owners in the LID have budgeted for the amount at LID formation. Really wouldn't want to, example, go back to Supreme Perlite and say, thank you for spending extra on the sanitary sewer extension, but we're also increasing your assessment because we decided midstream to change the assessment methodology. So we will work very hard to continue to control cost and do our best to keep the burden to a minimum when we come back at final assessment.
Thank you. I mean, I understand the rationale behind the last commenter's testimony, but it is the responsibility of adjacent property owners to share in the cost of improvements. And I agree, it would be a bad precedent to set. Commissioner Hardesty, did you have a question?
No, I think my question has been answered. Thank you.
All right.
And I would just also point out, we are going to build a new reconstructed driveway for the property in question on North Settle Road. It is divided into two lots, and one of the lots does abut North Portland Road, but we will be building a reconstructed driveway for the westernmost of the two properties that are in common ownership.
Great, thank you. So the next step would be to vote on the motion, right?
Yeah, I just want to make sure,
The amendment,
did
yeah.
we amend Exhibit D, the cover memo?
So we had a second, we haven't voted on it yet.
Yes, yeah. So Carla, can you call the roll on the amendment?
Fish?
Aye?
Hardesty?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye. Okay, and this is an emergency ordinance, so we will be taking vote on 491. Carla, can you call the roll?
Fish?
Well, Andrew, thank you once again for structuring a very informative hearing, explaining all the key components, getting broad consensus, and then answering our questions about the two remonstrances. I'm a big fan, as you know, and I wish we had more Andrew Abbeys in local government helping to bring parties together to resolve these kinds of thorny issues. But you do a superb job. You've answered all my questions, and I'm going to vote aye.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Fritz?
The revised Exhibit D explains why the remonstrances should not be upheld. This is all of the property owners are affected, and that's the essence of what a local improvement district is figuring out what's the appropriate amount for each property owner to pay and what the city is going to contribute. And I believe you got it right. Aye.
Udaley?
Well, thank you, Andrew. This constitutes a great improvement on an already great LID, and additional partners sharing the increased costs is also a positive for us. So thank you for your work, and I vote aye. We read those ordinances together, but do we vote on them separately?
Yes, we do.
Okay. The ordinance is passed. Carla, please call the roll on 492.
Fish?
Aye.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye. Thank you. The ordinance is passed. So now we are moving to item 496, correct, Commissioner Fish?
Thank you, yes.
Yes. Okay. Carla, please read the item.
496, authorize 2-year grant agreements with 7 youth-serving organizations in support of the Teen Collaborative Initiative not to exceed $560,000 and per grant not to exceed $80,000.
I'm going to turn this over to Eileen Argentina for a very brief presentation, and then we're happy to take council questions. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Eileen Argentina, Recreation Services Division Manager, Portland Parks and Rec. And the ordinance before you this morning would fund 7 grants under the Portland Parks and Recreation Teen Program's Teen Collaborative Initiative. The grant program is one part of a much larger teen program, but we think it's a really essential part in that the sum, we think, is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. These partnerships have been very valuable in reaching our youth. In 2015, when council voted to significantly expand the teen program, these grants were a part of it. I think this is the 4th time we've brought an ordinance forward for grants. And this year, we implemented some changes as we committed to last year when you approved the last batch. We wanted to open it up. Initially, the groups had been selected through a process where Mayor Hales was very involved in identifying how to sort of bring partners together around teen services. This year, we had more of an open process where we solicited proposals, and the announcement asked for organizations to describe how they would work with youth on the following areas: leadership and skill development. That included job skills, developing familiarity with local services, including our own, access to caring adults and positive role models, opportunities to participate in organized sports and other activities. The other 2 areas were in academic support as well as community building. And an important part of this program is we're trying to really deepen our relationship with these groups so that we can have a greater collective impact on the youth that we're serving, and I think help them to introduce the youth they're working with to Portland Parks and Recreation, to their Parks and Recreation system. So I'd be happy to answer any questions and provide more information.
Commissioner Hardesty?
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Commissioner Fish. I asked this to be pulled off the consent agenda because I was struck by a couple of things. First, this program was created in 2015 because the Portland Police Bureau reported there was 183 gang shootings. And so I wanted to know what the connection was between youth leadership development and the gang shootings.
Sure, I can answer that. It's true, at that time, there was a spike in gun violence. There was a lot of concern. And I think the commissioners were concerned. The mayor's office came to Parks and said, I want to do some work to get upstream of this so that we can sort of develop programs for youth that will help them to build resilience and to be engaged in positive activities, but also look for opportunities to have more positive engagement with the police force and other organizations. So we were looking at ways at that time that police could come in for basketball time or those sorts of things. It was really just looking to try to get upstream of some of the things things that were occurring at that time.
So that was 2015, that was the vision. And what results do we have based on that vision? I mean, are relationships better between police and 10 to 20-year-olds in the city of Portland today?
You know, I can't say that we have that in a measurable way. We think we have seen a decrease in the level of youth violence and gun violence, at least I think, in terms of what we were observing at that time. I think the results have been, last year we brought a report to council, and I'll make sure that your office gets a copy of that report, where we talked about what's happening with the program. You know, we're serving 40,000 kids a year in our community centers, and this is not just the grant programs. This is our 5 Teen Force sites where we have Parks and Recreation permanent staff who are leading programs. So we've had some, I think, really good results in terms of the number of kids and the number of hours that we're able to serve them, and really just give them a positive place to be with trusted adults.
So I want to be clear, I have a lot of respect for the programs who are being funded through this grant. So it is less about the organizations and more about the accountability that's built into this. All of these organizations serve youth as part of their mission. And how can we be assured that these are distinct youth who are being served specifically around the resources that are being targeted to this specific demographic?
Great question. You know, each of the applicants had to identify what they were going to do with the funds that would be made available, and the agreements that are set up are going to hold them accountable to those. They vary from program to program or organization to organization, but each grantee will need to provide a report every 6 months over the 2 years of the grants. In addition, we'll be bringing the group together quarterly for meetings, and I'd like to ask Darrell Singleton to speak a little bit about that, because it really gets back to this idea of collectively we're going to be more effective serving kids if we're working together closely.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners.
And you should identify.
Okay, sorry. Darrell Singleton. I am the Manager of Recreation Strategies and Initiatives. In my portfolio, I include teens as well as the SUN program within Parks. So I sit on the SUN Coordinating Council, as well as overseeing 11 of our SUN schools that are supported and managed through Parks and Recreation. To address Eileen's statement in reference to the connection that we make with the other partners, is we wanted to build a collaboration that is supportive throughout. So to your question, Commissioner Hardesty, is the goal is that kids have multiple accesses and research and points that they can connect with different agencies, including parks. Right now, we do not have that metrics. That's something that we probably could build upon, because what we are doing is we meet quarterly to work together to strategize the best practices in working with these different targeted groups. So in that, if that may, where I'm going with this is, in those quarterly meetings, we sit down, talk about what they're doing. They also provide their levels of reports, how to improve upon that, how we engage in the buildings that we use within parks, what holes that are missing in our systems, working with one of our other partners who also works with in our gang enforcement. So basically, it's different. I don't like the term gang enforcement in this. It's an engagement that kids who get in trouble or have a bad experience, have a positive scenario instead of having to deal with the police, and so that they can do a better relationship, build relationships, engage them on not only the negative behavior, but also on the positive behavior. Give them alternatives, give them options. So some of those things that we talk about within visitations, we also talk about resources and referrals. So many of our kids, if we talk through our POIC contract, get referrals for employment, get referrals for different shopping opportunities, get referrals for career development, get referrals on different things like that.
So thank you for that. You slipped and used the gang enforcement thingamajig, and of course, we're told that that doesn't exist anymore. But
Can I offer, I think you were referring to the street-level gang
Gang
outreach
outreach.
workers that we contract with through POIC. So
We're not talking about gang directly. We're talking about the title that really probably should be changed, because the goal is to encourage kids for positive behaviors.
Yeah, that's a much longer conversation. The conversation today, though, is like you brought up Sun Schools, and I know Sun Schools is funding that is supporting young people and using after-school programs and parks and et cetera, et cetera. So again, my concern is, can you tell me whether you have distinctive young people that are going through this particular program that are not being funded by other programs that are working with supposedly the same demographic of young people? Because I'm just feeling like, it sounds like what Parks is doing is the same thing that Sun Schools is doing. And I just want to know if there's some, and I don't want to belabor this, but I think this is important info.
Eileen, let me ask you something. We had a report last year. When are we scheduled for the next report on outcomes?
We haven't scheduled it yet, but we'd love to come
Commissioner
back.
Hardesty, you're entitled to all the information you want, and this seems like a very profitable line of conversation. Would you like us to schedule a follow-up briefing with your office to go a little deeper into this?
Yes.
Frame your questions and concerns, get you some answers ahead of a report to council?
I'd love to review last year's report, and I would love to have a briefing on where we are at the moment. Because when I see the same organizations being funded over and over again for the same programs, it makes me a little suspicious. And so I would love to have more details about that, yes.
We can do both.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing for the record? This is the fourth time, and in this process, 2 groups that have been funded dropped off, and we brought in 2 new groups. And one of the ones that we think is going to really enhance what we're doing is with New Avenues for Youth, the Sexual Minority Youth Resource Center. So they'll be part of this grant program, and that's new for us. We think that will help, as well as Elevate Oregon. So we are looking to make sure that it's not the same groups year after year.
So Eileen, if you could schedule a follow-up briefing for the commissioner office, a copy of the report, and let's continue this conversation.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hardesty, thank you for pulling this. I actually suggested to Mayor Wheeler that he pull it. Yeah, I was suggested yesterday that he pull it because I think this is a fantastic program. I'm really proud of the report. I'm glad that you're going to look into it, and I appreciate the fact that Parks has done what they said they were going to do in terms of going out for new people have to prove rather than just getting routinely renewed over and over again.
Thank you.
Great. Carla, is there any testimony?
This was pulled, and I didn't have a sign-up sheet.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this specific item? Okay. Mr. West, I'm going to be very firm about keeping your testimony relevant to the item. And the list is closed. The 3 individuals who signaled they'd like to testify may do so. Sir, please come up to the, no, Maggie, this gentleman.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. Callahan? Maggie, I invited Mr. Callahan to the table. I didn't see you say that you wanted to testify, and I've closed the record.
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to you.
Oh.
Yes.
I thought you were inviting anyone to come up.
I asked, 3 people signaled, and I closed the record. Mr. Callahan signaled. I'm inviting Mr. Callahan to the table. So this item, I'm actually going to read the title again. It is to authorize a 2-year grant agreements with 7 youth-serving organizations in support of the Teen Collaborative Initiative. So your testimony needs to be for or against that and relevant to that item, or I will cut you off. Mr. West, please begin.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to bring up the fact of the gang enforcement, and that gang enforcement's to put them around the children is like totally ridiculous. And you're sticking ex-gang members and gang members around gang enforcement, and they're supposed to be trusted. I think that is totally ridiculous, and that's why I'm against it, because we can't, parks should be parks, police should be police. They've already tried putting police, or the kids said they didn't want police in their schools, and the city said, so what, we'll put them there anyway. I see the same thing happening here. You know, people should be comfortable about going to the parks, doing these park programs, and you got a lot of youths out there that don't feel comfortable with basically going to a parks program with gang enforcement, which typically goes after Black and Hispanic gang members. And not just gang members, but Blacks and Hispanics as a whole. So that's why I'm against that measure.
Thank you for keeping your testimony relevant, Mr. West. I forgot to ask you to state your name for the record.
All right. My name is Robert West.
Thank you. Mr. Callahan?
Hello, my name is Michael Callahan. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to give you a very radical thing here. First of all, I'm in favor of it, okay? We're not going to do anything in our community to solve the problems of violence as long as drugs are illegal and prostitution is illegal. We come, as we all know, from a very Christian background, and this ethic has taken hold and has not budged much. But you see a country like Portugal, where they decriminalized drug possession, not legalized, decriminalized. And you see Oregon here, where they legalized marijuana possession, same Alaska, same Washington. All those drugs, all that marijuana that was being produced illegally is now being produced legally. Diminished a lot of conflicts. What I would propose, which is quite radical, is what I call an ozone, okay? I enjoy the city getting money off of our ills. Also, it's important for me, if you have a cancer in your body, you would just as soon put it in one particular small place where you can deal with it rather than having it through your body. We've got it all through our body. We need to take an area of Portland and declare it an ozone city, fence the thing completely secure. Nobody leaves without security or enters through security. And anything you want is available there on a per dose basis. You're going to get drugs that are pure. You're not going to get people that are going to die because you got shoot up rooms and you can help them, and they're not going to overdose because they only get it on a one dose basis. A nephew of mine died of an overdose. Okay, it's rampant in the community. Okay, we need to be mature about this. Okay, and the city can make a fortune off of this. Okay, and they can afford to feed people like they're not doing now. Okay, it's a very mature, and I realize a political death knell if you propose it, but I'm not on the political platform. You guys are. So anyway, that is a solution to this problem. Okay, to keep pumping money into this thing is absurd. To keep all these police that need to be policing all this stuff in the community. And the community needs to deal with it all through the community. Okay, if we put it in one place where it's legal in that place, just in that place, there'll be no crimes committed. They have shut that place down. They're going to catch anybody that does any criminal activity. Okay, there's a radical solution, but it is a solution that will work, that will make our communities healthier. Thank you for the time. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Diana, and I really am in support of this team building program. The fact that it has been around for 7 years, to me, is very impressive. Someone growing up in this community, it's very important to see that the youth is engaged, that the youth has programs, and also the fact that they're bringing law enforcement to kind of bridge that gap and build that trust. I feel that it's very important because when you have people working together, when you have a community working together, relationships are so much better. And so the fact that even the team program is being aware of how many organizations are being supported, they have 7 organizations, and two organizations that they were supporting are no longer, and they've been shuffled out, and there's a new program, there's a new opening for a program. So I do like to see, and I really appreciated Commissioner Hardestein's question on that, because it is a legit question. You don't want something to say, this is the commiseration of when we gave ourselves an award for something, right? Like, that's ridiculous. You want to see hard work, you want to see people working together, and it is good to see a positive rotation, because that brings, a breath of fresh air. It gives opportunity for new growth, new relationships, and new partnerships. And so I'm really pleased with this agenda item. I'm really pleased with this topic, and I'm in full support of this. I was really moved when they talked about how they created it back in 2015 because of the numbers becoming really, really high on gang shootings. It's a really hard topic to talk about. It's a serious topic. It's not something you want to take lightly at all. And so bridging that gap and being a beacon for youth, providing education and giving resources, because we don't know what the daily lives of every single youth in our city is like, and we don't know what resources they actually need. So the fact that we are continuing to keep a rotation to provide it, the only thing I would encourage is more education as far as promoting this and putting it out there so families, independent youths, know what is available to them, and making sure that we target all the different communities, the Multnomah County community, the Vancouver County community, the Washington County community. It's very important to just promote what these programs are doing and what is available. So,
Thank you. Commissioner Hardesty?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you so much for your testimony, all three of you. But I had a couple of very specific questions for you. Have you participated in any of the programs that were presented through this grant?
no, I have not participated in these programs. I grew up in Washington State across the border, so it doesn't transcend into Washington State. I came out to Oregon back in 2015 due to displacement.
I would cautiously recommend that we not assume that because this document says that there were that many gang-related shootings, that is really what happened. We are getting one perspective of what was taking place in 2015. So I don't want you to walk away thinking that we all believe that there was 182 gang shootings that year. So I want to be clear about that. I appreciate you talking about building relationships, but how familiar are you with the officers that are invited to participate with young people in this program?
I'm not familiar with the officers for this program. However, I will say that I have had many interactions with officers here in the Portland City, the Portland Police Bureau. I know the officers that work in the sex crimes unit and those who are advocating and providing resources, including just the fact that there was a bill passed to unify the tribal nations, and it's being spearheaded by the Oregon Police State. They are taking this on. They are unifying the tribal nations. So I do see a lot of positive advocacy with law enforcement, and that is one of the biggest that's one of the biggest things that I want to see continued on. I want to see that relationship to grow, because it is intimidating when you see someone in a uniform and maybe you're not feeling your best, maybe you're not looking your best, or maybe you're walking on cloud nine, but it can still be intimidating because you want to check yourself for some reason.
I appreciate your I appreciate your testimony. Thank you so much. And that's Oregon State Police that are actually spearheading the the tribal
Yes.
bill. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a first reading of a non-emergency item. It moves to second reading. We are now back on track with our regular agenda. Carla, will you please call item 500?
Amend permit fee schedules for building, electrical, land use services, mechanical, enforcement, plumbing, signs, site development, and land use services fee schedule for the hearings office.
Colleagues, this is a second reading. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Thank you to Elshad Hajiv, Kyle O'Brien, and Kimberly Talent in the Bureau of Development Services for their responsiveness to previous testimony about the historic resources. Thank you to my colleagues on the council for also taking an interest and for allocating money in the budget so that we can provide some general fund subsidy to keep those fees more reasonable. And I appreciate the work of the staff at the Bureau of Development Services, particularly Elshad, and your attention to the financial sustainability policy and the attention to detail of keeping the funds in each place that they're supposed to be, following state law, building code, the whole 9 yards. It's very impressive work. Aye.
Udaly.
I vote aye. The item of the ordinance is adopted. Carla, please read item 504.
Amend fee schedules for tree permits.
Colleagues, this is another second reading. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye. Thank you. The ordinance is adopted. Carla, please read item 505.
Amend fee schedule associated with fire regulations.
This is a second reading. Is there any further discussion? Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye. Thank you. The ordinance is adopted. Carla, please read item 506.
Amend ordinance to reference the overlapping streets of Northampton Avenue and North Kenton Boulevard within the vacation area of North Hunt Street.
This ordinance should hopefully clear up potential confusion about ownership of a street vacation, which sounds a lot more fun than it really is, intended to assist in the development of an affordable housing project. Here to explain the details is Dee Walker from PBOT. Welcome, Dee. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Before you, Dee Walker with Right-of-Way Acquisition for Transportation. Before you this morning is an amendment to amend an ordinance that passed in December of 2018 to vacate North Hunt Street east of North Argyle Way. The original ordinance to vacate North Hunt Street is part of a project involving Prosper Portland and Transition Projects Incorporated, or otherwise known as TPI, to construct an affordable housing project on the abutting property. So the ordinance passed, and we heard from the title company of TPI. They were a bit concerned because there are two overlapping streets that are overlapping North Hunt Street, and they felt that when the ordinance is recorded, it would still have some confusion there because there are two existing streets. They were vacated, all but a little tiny piece within North Hunt. So let's see, okay. So you can see there's a segment on the east side and a segment on the west side, Northampton Boulevard, Northampton Avenue, and North Kenton. So these two little pieces of street are remaining within North Hunt. So the street was all vacated, but these two little segments. So the title company was concerned because when North Hunt gets vacated, when the ordinance is recorded, thereby completing the vacation, that these two little segments would somehow possibly confuse and cloud the title. So I spoke with our city attorney's office, and I was advised, although it is not legally necessary to amend the ordinance, to call out those segments of Northampton and North Kenton in order to eliminate any confusion. An amendment would make it clear. So to assist in the project schedule, we went ahead and put this as an emergency item for it to pass today.
Fantastic. Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Just a comment. This is the very definition of a housekeeping item.
It is. Yes, it is.
Thank you for your presentation. Very clear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to thank Matt Grum because he helped to expedite this in order to keep the schedule for the project. It was a bit of a panic mode there at the end, knowing that I was going to come back with an amendment, but thanks to Matt Grum, he made this possible to be here today. So.
Oh, great. Carla, was there any testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
All right, and I believe that is Commissioner Hardesty returning to the dais. Colleagues, this is an emergency item, so Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Udaly.
Thanks for that brief presentation, Dee, and thank you, Matt Grum. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Carla,
you.
please read item 507.
Revised transportation fees, rates, and charges for fiscal year 2019-20, amend transportation fee schedule, and city parking garage rates, and fix an effective date.
This is a second reading. Is there any further discussion? Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Udaly.
Well, I want to thank Christine Leon, Group Manager for PBOT Development, Permitting, and Transit, and Dave Benson, Group Manager for Parking Services, for their hard work on this item. I spoke about this last week, but didn't want to miss an opportunity to remind the public that I've asked PBOT, and we are about to we are about to pass this item, creating a 50% reduction in fees programmatically for affordable housing development and low-income owner-occupied residences. The affordable housing reduction would apply to properties where the low-income occupants are someone other than the current property owner and either selling to a qualified low-income home owner or a low-income rental property with a 60-year requirement for renters with income less than 60% of MFI. I hope you all followed that. This policy would also extend to low-income owner-occupied homes being developed where the current property owner intends to live there as their primary residence and follow similar parameters to the LTIC eligibility. Our current housing crisis demands that we think of every possible way to alleviate the costs and burdens of building affordable housing. I want to thank PBOT for enthusiastically agreeing to do its fair share with what authority we have to do so. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Carla, please read item 508.
Authorize $150,000 total in grant funds for the East Portland Action Plan 2019 grant program.
Colleagues, I'm pleased to bring forth this ordinance to approve the 2019 East Portland Action Plan grants. As you know, EPAP members reallocate much of their funding towards competitive grants program, which continues to be an important community building mechanism that brings tangible benefits to East Portland residents. I continue to be impressed by both EPAP's quality of work and the process by which they get there. Before I hand it over for the brief presentation, I'd like to take this opportunity to also formally introduce our new EPAP staff advocate, J.R. Lilly. Hi, J.R., who some of us know from his previous role at NEA. J.R., welcome, and I'll suspend the rules if somebody wants to, if we don't clap. Yay. With that, I'd like to call up Angela Previdelli, Manuel Padilla, and Brandy Jordan for their presentation. Welcome, and please state your name for the record.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just need to state for the record a potential conflict of interest, as I have gratefully served as a volunteer with EPAP, even though I've been absent for about a year and a half now, and I feel compelled to put that on the record before we begin. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Does the city attorney have any concerns or guidance? Commissioner Hardesty is free to vote on this item.
Yeah, there's no actual conflict since you no longer serve, correct? Thank you.
Great.
I want to.
Well, I would say you're serving in a different capacity and perhaps a more powerful one. So,
Bigger chairs anyway.
yes. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. So, hello, Mayor, Commissioners. Oh, I guess Mayor's not here. Commissioners.
That's Madam President, yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Angela Previdelli. I'm a grants coordinator with the Office of Community and Civic Life, and I work out of the East Portland Community Office. So I'm here to present the funding recommendations for the 2019 EPAP grants. For this presentation, I'm going to walk through a little bit of the grant process, provide a brief summary of the recommendations, and then I'm going to hand it over to two of the recommended grantees that we have here today. We have Brandy Jordan from Impact Northwest, and then we have Manuel Padilla from Portland Meet Portland. So to begin explaining my role in the EPAP grants, so in November 2018, I was asked by the East Portland Action Plan Operations Committee to help run the 2019 grant program while they were going through a staff transition. So they didn't have someone to run it at the time. And I had the capacity to, and so I was asked to step in and was glad to do so. So the 2019 EPAP grant program included two grant types. There's the general grant program and the civic engagement grant program. For some of the details about the differences between the two, there's information on the grant criteria that's included in your packets at the beginning of the exhibits A and B. So each program had allocated $75,000 in grant funding that was available. So in total, we received 33 applications between the two grant programs for a total ask of $307,427.56. So more than double the amount of funding that was available. So that really speaks to the amount of demand that there is for this program. So the EPAP Grant Review Committee consisted of 7 members. All of the members are part of the EPAP general body, and the EPAP chair this year was Naima Shahid, and she had served on the grant committee in years previous as well. So the grant review committee members scored each of the applications using the grant criteria that's included in your packets. Then they came together and deliberated and set forth a set of recommendations, and those are the recommendations that we're bringing to you today. So the recommendations are to fund 17 projects in total, split evenly between the two grant programs. In your packets, you have 2 complete lists of all of the recommended projects, including the name of the organization, a brief overview of what the project intends to do, the amount of funding that's being leveraged with that program, and then also the recommended funding amount. So with that, I will introduce our 2 other speakers. So the projects that they are going to speak to really demonstrate the breadth of the EPAP funding and highlights some of the really amazing work that's happening in East Portland. So first, we're going to have Brandy Jordan here, representing Impact Northwest's Pathways to Manufacturing Skateboard Building Project. This project is recommended as part of the general grant recommendations. The project plans to connect low-income high school students from East Portland to meaningful work experiences in the local manufacturing sector, with the ultimate aim of exposing those students to family wage career opportunities. Next, we're going to have Manuel Padilla from Portland Meet Portland, Healing Dialogues for East Portland's Rohingya refugee community. This project is recommended as part of the Civic Engagement Grant Program. The project plans to facilitate a series of dialogues that brings members of the Rohingya community together with trained trauma-informed facilitators to explore themes around resettlement and belonging. The culmination of that project will be a welcoming ceremony that's going to be hosted by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brandy to begin.
Hi, thank you so much for having us today. My name is Brandy Jordan. I work at Impact Northwest in the Career Opportunities Readiness and Exploration Program. It's a program designed to work with youth around career readiness, both for in-school and out-of-school youth from 16 to 26 years old. We specifically have some programming focused in on manufacturing as a career path. We have a state-registered manufacturing pre-apprenticeship for out-of-school youth, and then we also have a Pathways to Manufacturing program program that's for high school-aged youth. This grant specifically would allow us to expand a piece of the project that we have in our manufacturing pre-apprenticeship that has proved very successful to our in-school Pathways to Manufacturing, Pathways to Manufacturing program, excuse me, and that's the skateboard building project. So with Pathways to Manufacturing, we know that in the Portland area, there was a study done that showed between 2014 and 2024, there would be 30,000 estimated job openings from retirement in our region. And in addition to that, 15,000 new jobs created within manufacturing. And that's around mechatronics, robotics, new technologies that they need skilled workers for. And there is a gap in the pool of skilled candidates to fill those roles. And so the program is designed to expose youth to those career pathways as family, wage, livable wage career, viable career options, and to get them introduced to those. So it's a full year of programming. It's in a before or after school setting. The students who participate are incredible. And what this has shown, we did a pilot of this with the Fur Ridge Alternative School out in East Portland, and we saw not only increased recruitment in the students who were participating in the program, but also increased retention of that year through that year-long program, and increased placement in either post-secondary or direct job placement in the manufacturing industry upon graduation. And so this grant would allow us to expand that, to run that program again at Fur Ridge Alternative School, and to also expand that to our PTM program at David Douglas High School. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Manuel?
Hi, thank you, commissioners. I really appreciate the opportunity to sit up here and talk with you about the programming that EPAP is funding us for. My name is Manuel Padilla. I'm the executive director of Portland Meet Portland, and I think many of us at least agree that the climate right now, with regards to immigrants and refugees, is quite difficult, and I really appreciate all that the city is doing in order to try to create a sense of welcoming and belonging to immigrants and refugees in this community, and the different funding and programs that the city is helping to support and provide. As I and some others have kind of looked out at the landscape, we've kind of noticed that for many good reasons, obviously there's a lot of focus on the sort of direct social service aspects of incorporating immigrants and refugees into our communities, and things that directly address education and health and issues like that. But in discussion with many of the people, both within the refugee communities in specific, and my board members and others, we've noticed that there's a little bit of a gap, it seems like, where being able to bring members of the same community together to speak a little bit more vulnerably and holistically about what their experiences have been like with refugee resettlement, and trying to help provide a space for developing a vision for what they want as far as agency and inclusion and belonging within this community, and what that looks like for them. Is missing maybe a little bit. And so what we're trying to do with these dialogues is provide a space for the Rohingya community in particular, who we're going to start out with, but we'll do more of these in the future, to provide a space to really talk about the trauma that they've faced, and the trauma that they faced, both in terms of where they're coming from, but also in terms of the re-traumatization that they face in trying to establish a new community and a new home in this new place. And talk about things that are difficult to talk about when you're struggling day to day to survive, just trying to get by. And some of those things would be inclusion, belonging, cultural preservation versus cultural integration, intergenerational issues that arise, and provide a space for thinking more broadly about a community vision and what they would like their communities to look like moving forward. And so we're bringing together people from the same Rohingya refugee community to talk and learn from one another and help them to make those decisions together. And we're working with a psychiatrist from Providence, Omar Reda. He was a ex-asylum seeker from Libya. And we have an evaluation tool, a simple evaluation tool that begin to measure what some of the impacts of these dialogues will be. And another thing that we've noticed is potentially absent is a concrete sort of spiritual sense of welcoming. I use that term in a very loose sense, but a sort of a spiritual sense of welcoming and belonging that comes on behalf of some community here in Oregon that can start to reset the clock a little bit. And we've been really lucky to be able to partner with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, one among many tribes that could have potentially done this. But there was some connection and some interest on their part in inviting refugees to their tribal longhouse to participate specifically in intercultural welcoming ceremonies that will provide that sense of home and official welcome on behalf of some community that would be appropriate in being able to provide that and would have some authority and power in being able to provide that. And we think that the Confederated Tribes, among other tribes, would be the right people to do that. And so we thank you for providing the opportunity, and EPAP providing the opportunity for being able to accomplish those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to public testimony, I think we have a couple things to address. First, I want to note, well, thank you for being here. Colleagues, I want to note that typically we would bring the annual report along with this item. However, since JR's first day was less than a month ago, we felt like he deserved more of a chance to work with EPAP members to plan that report. So that's going to be coming a little later this year. I don't have a date as of now, but I just wanted to note that. And I think that perhaps Commissioner Fritz has a amendment.
I do, Commissioner Udaley. Knowing that Commissioner Fish and I really appreciated being on the council when EPAP was voted in, and as Commissioner Hardesty said, she's been a long time supporter, and obviously Commissioner Udaley is as well. I believe it would be in the public interest to get these grants out of the door as quickly as possible, and so I moved to add an emergency clause so we can vote today.
Great. Carla, please call the roll. Well, no, then we go to testimony, right? And then okay. Carla, is there any public testimony on this item?
We do. We have two people.
All right.
Mike O'Callahan
Go ahead and take
and
your seat.
Maggie.
All right. Okay, in light of how far behind we are, I'm going to reduce testimony to 2 minutes and ask you to keep it relevant to the item, which is EPAP grants. Welcome, and please state your name for the record.
Okay, Michael O'Callahan. All in favor of the grant. I think it's really great that the refugees gets housed, and it's in Southeast, and I certainly am in favor of that. I certainly have issues with a significant problem that we have in Southeast, all over Portland, of the unhoused. And as an advocate and a litigant in that process, I want to inform you of a couple of things. First of all, I told you that I did a survey in 11 and where I found 75 people who were sleeping outside and 15 that were included in the point-in-time homeless count. So I decided to do it again this year immediately after the homeless count. And in 2 days, I found 17 people who were sleeping outside and one person was included in the homeless count. Okay? That homeless count is wholly inaccurate. You have 12,000 people sleeping on the streets. Okay? Now, I would appreciate, Commissioner Fish, if you would respect the Ninth Circuit's opinion and order in the Boise case, which parallels my case, that says that it's unconstitutional to enforce the camping ordinance if the shelters are full. Your park narcs have been down on Springwater Trail, throwing my friends out when they were on private property, and they stole all their stuff.
Commissioner, this has
Okay?
nothing to do with
Thank you.
with EPAP.
All right, Maggie, you have 2 minutes. Please keep it relevant.
I think the civic engagement grants are a good idea. However, I would like to see representatives communicating directly with participants, because what I see happening is the bureaucracies going and communicating with the contractors about what the civic engagement groups are trying to do, rather than communicating with the participants directly themselves to find out if they're effective or what needs to be changed in the system or to help, find out, get suggestions about what works better and what does not work. So I would rather that representatives talk directly with participants. So to get an idea of whether programs that bureaucracies and contractors are getting funding for are working. So if you guys would make an effort to do that, that would be great. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Madam
Commissioner
Chair. Maggie, have you ever been to an EPAP meeting?
I haven't.
So I recommend that you actually come to one, because
Okay.
what you would see is that it's very multicultural, multi-ethnic. It is led by community members. All the votes are done by consensus. And so everything you just said about talking directly to the people, guess who comes to EPAP meeting? The people.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. This is an emergency ordinance. Oh, so first we vote on the amendment to make this an emergency ordinance.
Fish,
Aye.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Now, Carla, please call the roll on the main item.
Fish,
Well, thank you for an excellent presentation today. I've been pleased to support the East Portland Action Plan for a long time, and in particular, this grant program. It seems like a lot of thought and care has gone into the selections, and our role today is just to sort of ratify that, so I'm pleased to do so. Aye.
Hardesty,
It's wonderful to see EPAP continuing to move forward, and what I love is that regardless of who shows up, there's a dedicated group of volunteers that are ready to step forward and make really hard decisions. There's always more requests for money than we've ever had to actually fund community programs. This has been an excellent effort, community-led, community-driven, and supported by the city of Portland. I vote aye.
Fritz,
It was a very memorable night when the community and the council came together to establish the East Portland Action Plan. And throughout the course of the recession, the council avoided cuts to East Portland Action Plan and also to the Diverse Civic Leadership Program. The neighborhood associations and district coalitions in the rest of the city all agreed that this is a high priority that needed to be funded. And so I'm very pleased to continue to support it. I'm glad that longtime co-chair Arlene Kimura was able to come back and join us, because I really appreciate your leadership and your ongoing commitment to the people of East Portland and indeed to our whole community. So thank you very much. Commissioner Udaly, thank you for taking over being champion for this program, and I look forward to continuing to support it. Aye.
Udaly,
Well, thank you to our presenters today, and of course, thank you to Arlene, and thank you and welcome to JR. EPAP is a really just truly inspirational organization and a model for the rest of the city, and I'm really looking forward to getting to work more closely with the program as it moves from civic life directly into my office. I vote aye. The ordinance is passed. And this has been a rather confusing day, so let me make sure I'm in the right place. Yes, Carla, please read item 509.
Increase fee schedule for the Office of Community and Civic Life Noise Office for noise variance applications in the amount of 5% as permitted by Code Section 18.14.020.b.
Thank you, Carla. Colleagues, this ordinance is to increase the noise variance fees by 5% to meet budget projections for the noise office, it's a mouthful, in the Office of Community and Civic Life for FY 2019 to 2020. You'll notice it's similar to the increase we approved last year. Well, I would call him up, but he's already here. City's noise officer, Paul Van Orden, for a very brief presentation.
Thank you, members of council. My name is Paul Van Orden. I'm the city's noise control officer. Today, we are looking at a 5% increase to our normal variance fees. There's not a lot of new information to report other than one specific element, which is the noise office has had an unusual amount of construction activity in our variance work the last several years. For fiscal year 16-17 and 17-18, we had seen an increase of our historic pattern of about 12% of our work being in construction variance work to over 30%, last year in particular 36%. And what we're starting to see in fiscal year 18 to 19 is a regression back to the mean, moving back towards this 12%. So fortunately, the fees are in a position, according to our accounting staff, that we should be solid in maintaining our 4 staff positions that we've historically had since the start of the noise office in 1976. And we will watch the trends and patterns and see what happens over the next year or two and see if there are any concerns in that area. The main one that I have mentioned is just that we are definitely seeing in the construction work a decrease and a return to our historic mean. And so the one thing of note is we have historically tried to be very sensitive of our community events. And so the category that we use for those events, we have tried to keep that from creeping up and getting too expensive. And with our new fees, if you're having a block party or a wedding or a small event of under 250 people, we've maintained that at about $100 or at $110. So it still stays fairly affordable for the average Portlander to have an event that would have amplified performances occur at the event. And that's the main information. I'm not sure if council has any particular questions.
Colleagues, any questions? All right. Carla, is there any testimony?
Yes, we have one person, Maggie.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Van Orden. Maggie, you have 2 minutes. Please keep your testimony relevant to the item, which is increasing fees for noise office by 5%.
Okay, so this is about where the Salvation Army sits in relationship to the entertainment district and the noise that goes on there, the speakers.
This is about increasing fees.
The speakers that are outside.
This is not relevant, Maggie. You will give relevant testimony or you need to sit down. Are you for or against increasing
I oppose
fees for
these
the noise
construction
office?
fees.
Okay,
These
they're
fees
not
for the
construction
city,
fees.
because I don't think this city is doing anything for the people on the matter of noise. Thank you.
Okay. Colleagues, is there any further discussion? This is a first reading of a non-emergency item. It moves to second reading. Carla, please read item 510.
Open and Accountable Elections Program.
All right, this is a second reading. Colleagues, is there any further discussion? Carla, please call the roll.
Fish. Hardesty. Aye. Fritz.
Colleagues, thank you for your support on these amendments. Thank you to Susan Mote, Anna Paisio, and Christina Nieves, and for the Open and Accountable Elections Commission. We are moving forward full steam ahead and look forward to bringing you updates. I think the next one will be next week when we're bringing the rules to you, or some more of the rules. So again, thank you for your partnership and support. Aye.
Udaley.
Happy to support this item. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Carla, please read the first polled consent agenda item.
That was 496, and we took care of that.
Pardon?
496.
Oh, I'm
we
sorry.
did
They're
take care
not
of
pulled consent items. They're items that have, on the regular agenda, under the mayor's agenda, were requested to be moved by the mayor's office. 501 has been pulled back to the mayor's office to be rescheduled.
Correct.
Correct?
Did you want me to read that title, or?
Do you need to?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We heard the number, yeah.
503 has been moved to the afternoon with no objection. Is that correct?
No. Are we, this is just a second reading.
They did want it, the mayor
The mayor
asked
has
that it
asked
be moved
that
to
it
2
be
PM
moved to the
session.
afternoon
Got
so
it.
he can participate.
I agree.
503.
So no objection to 503. Okay. The mayor has also requested that item 502 be moved back, or moved to the afternoon. There's an objection from Commissioner Hardesty. Does that remain? Okay. And so I need to ask the city attorney how we proceed, or explain to my colleagues how we proceed when there is a request to move an item that is objected.
There needs to be a majority vote.
In this instance, if I could, Madam Chair.
Yes,
the,
Commissioner Fish.
The sponsor of the agenda has asked that it be moved, and I think it is normally our policy to accommodate the sponsor. I guess one question is, could this be set over to next week and still meet whatever deadline we're operating under?
The mayor's office has declined to pull it back to reschedule at a different date.
Okay.
So the request remains and the objection remains. So there has to be a motion and a second and a vote.
So, Madam Chair, I move that we vote on agenda item 502 now.
Second.
Okay, Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Udaley.
Well, I would have preferred to defer to the mayor. I would always defer to the commissioner in charge. I'm going to vote no, but the item passes and we will be voting on the item. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
It's a little bit of a confusing process. I don't think we've ever done that before. So Carla, please call item 502.
Fish.
Well, there are two items before us today. One is a cost of living adjustment to non-represented employees. A cost of living adjustment is designed to keep pace with inflation. When we don't grant cost of living increases to our employees, they take in effect a pay cut. And so I'm proud to serve on a council that believes in providing COLAs to our represented and our non-represented employees. And so I will, of course, support that. I have been on the council during some tough budgets where we have asked employees to share the pain when we've had inadequate revenue to fund certain programs. And so I have, from time to time, declined the cost of living personally, and I will do so again this year. But I believe our hardworking, non-represented employees deserve the COLA, and therefore I vote aye.
Hardesty.
First, I want to thank my colleagues who affirmed that this item should be voted on now rather than waiting until this afternoon. I greatly appreciate your support, both of you. And the reason this was important to me is because my absence at the early session this afternoon has been on record for quite some time. And I thought that this item is something that I cared near and dear about. And since I'm here this morning, felt compelled that I should have the opportunity to weigh in. I am disappointed that we didn't take the opportunity to save some jobs at the city of Portland, where we could have done that last week. I have received email from many city employees who, almost to an individual, I think I had one person who objected to not receiving a COLA. But from all the emails and phone calls I've received from city employees, they were very grateful and very appreciative that if asked, they would have been happy to give up a 3% pay raise to maintain jobs here. And because of that, I cannot in good conscience, knowing that last week we voted to eliminate positions at the city of Portland, there's absolutely no way this week I can then vote myself, my staff, and my colleagues a pay raise. So therefore, in that spirit, I vote absolutely not. I vote no.
Fritz.
Thank you to all of my colleagues for their principled stands on this. Commissioner Udaley, normally I would defer to the commissioner in charge. On this instance, we had the discussion last week in the budget, and it was clear that the vote on this would be 4-1 if all of us were here. And so this afternoon, as Commissioner Hardesty mentioned, she has had a long-standing filed absence. The vote would be 4-0. And I believe it's important for Commissioner Hardesty's no vote to be on the record. And after all, 90% of success is showing up, and this was scheduled for this morning, and various absences could have been anticipated. On the topic of the cost of living adjustment, which is not a pay raise, it's keeping pace with inflation, the challenge I had, Commissioner Fish and I obviously share Commissioner Hardesty's concern for the parks employees. We all do. A one-time deferral, and let's be clear, it wasn't even a let's don't do this, but let's defer it. That doesn't save jobs because we need 5 years worth of projected income in order to be able to keep people employed full-time. And so as painful as the budget votes were last week and the choices that are now facing the Parks Department, this unfortunately deferring the cost of living adjustment for non-represented, unfortunately, would not have fixed that problem. I do believe it's important, especially with the work that the Bureau of Human Resources has done in the pay equity issues in the class comps study, to not make decisions on the fly that could overturn literally years of careful work to try to make sure that the city's pay structure is equitable. And certainly having proposed this in my very first budget and been informed as to why it wouldn't work, I have come to believe that if we're going to do something like this, we need to do it in conversation with both our represented and non-represented partners, like we did during the recession, and make sure that there aren't any unintended consequences. Therefore, I vote aye.
Udaley.
Well, I just want to make clear that I have no issue with us taking this vote in the morning, that, like I said, on the earlier vote, I will defer to the commissioner in charge, and I make that same pledge to each of you. To me, that's just a simple, fair approach, but this is also fine. I do appreciate Commissioner Hardesty's effort. It was a valiant one, but I think, as Commissioner Fish and Commissioner Fritz have explained, it actually didn't solve the problem. And I'd be very uncomfortable taking away COLA from, I think, around 1,300 employees, who range from our lowest paid employees up to our staff and to ourselves. This is not about a pay raise for us. The pay raise to us wouldn't cover the annual salary of a single employee earning $15 an hour. I vote yes. The item passes. And we are adjourned.
Yes. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Very nice.